With the latest on the corporate front, all the market trends, expert opinion, and sound business advice. It is your unique window into the business world, direct from the heart of China.
Hello and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. The digital economy has been called the third great economic revolution after the agricultural and industrial revolutions. Data shows that China's digital economy reached 54 trillion yuan in 2023, accounting for nearly 43% of the country's total GDP. As China stands at a pivotal juncture in its economic transformation, the digital economy has emerged as a key driver in the overall economic landscape. So what is driving China's digital economy, and what does the growth say about China's economic policy? What are the challenges and opportunities in it? For more on this, join us on the line now are Li Lun, Assistant Professor of Economics, Peking University, Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novim Archi Technologies, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. So I will start with you. China's digital economy has reached 54 trillion yuan. So what is driving the digital economy in China, do you think?
Right. So I think the driving forces are multidimensional. We know, for example, the digital economy relies on high-speed internet. And so the government has really forward-looking infrastructure sort of planning, right? They have constructed about 4 million 5G towers in the country, and it really covers the vast majority of the territory, including some of the rural areas. So with these large-scale infrastructure, China is able to have, over 1 billion of netizens. So with all these digital assets and these, infrastructure, China is able to leverage on the digital economy. We also have really, very large amount of entrepreneurs and also, all of the technological and technical talents. They help to develop a lot of, softwares and also continue to integrate the digital technologies in industries, in agriculture, in the service sector. So I think it has built a very dynamic ecosystem, right? From e-commerce, e-payments to smart manufacturing to, smart agriculture, logistics, you name it. So it has become a very dynamic and vibrant ecosystem of the digital economy. And last but not the least, there's a huge market in China with, 1.4 billion people. And as I mentioned, many of the internet users, they're very sort of receptive when it comes to digital technologies because they witness the benefits of the digital technologies in their lives, right? From online shopping to ride shares to, online delivery. There are many benefits of using the digital economies and using the digital technologies. So we have this whole holistic system, right? From the government to the businesses to the consumers are all pushing forward for the digital economy. So as you just mentioned, it is now accounting for 43% of the GDP with an annual growth of 7.4% in 2023. And, this also represented a 3.8 times increase from the past 11 years. So in many ways, I think China is really leading the way in that digital transformation in its economy.
And Professor Li Lun, so what do you think are the main business models? For example, China's e-commerce plays quite an important role in retail. So how do you explain that?
Right. So a lot of things can be included in the digital economy category. But overall, I think the main business model for digital economy can be summarized by 3 characteristics. They either surpass traditionally defined geographical boundaries, or they eliminate intermediaries on the market, or they enhance the efficiency or save time for the consumer. So what do I mean by each of these? For example, traditionally, if we are trying to buy something from the market, we have to go to a shopping mall. So the local, sellers and local buyers have to, meet their supply and demand. So everything have to be clear in a local market. But right now, we can, order things online. The demand of the entire nation can be matched by the supply from all over the country. Basically, factories all over the country can provide the goods that demanded by consumers. So this is what I mean by surpassing the geographical boundaries. A lot of the e-commerce platforms are exactly doing that. And another thing is eliminate intermediaries. For example, when we, again, if we're trying to buy something from the market, the good is usually shipped from, very far away through very different, intermediary, sellers. And this creates, multiple levels of markup, basically boosting the prices for local consumers. But if we can directly order from the farmers, from the factories, this eliminates all of the intermediaries and give the product to the consumers at a very low price. And finally, enhancing efficiency. This includes, for example, ordering delivery or like ordering, grocery from the supermarket. This saves you time, saves you, all the hassle driving to the supermarket, picking up the grocery and put it in your car and so on. So basically, I think, even though a lot of things can be included in the digital economy, a basket, I think these three characteristics are the main business models or reasons why they prosper in China.
And Jiahe, so the World Economic Forum has projected as the global economy rapidly digitalized and estimated 70% of the new value created over the coming decade will be based on digitally enabled platform business models. So what do you make of that? And tell us more details about those business models.
Well, when we look at the digital economy, the online shopping or the platform for online shopping is the first tier of developing the digital economy. But we are just like, when we entered the industrial age back about 200 years ago, we started from mills producing clothes. But and some people thought, okay, this might be the only contribution of the industrial age. But later on, it turned out it is not. I mean, the mills for producing clothes and factories is just the very beginning of the industrial age. And when we look at digital economy, that's exactly the same thing. Initially, people said, okay, digital economy might only apply for online platforms and for internet shopping, these kind of things. But later on, we kept on developing a lot of very different new areas of new ways of making economies and shopping, all these kind of things. I mean, we got a huge amount of business models developed from the digital economy. And I think we are still on the very frontier of the digital era, that we will keep on seeing new ways of, economic production in the future basing on the digital economy. I mean, for example, the online ordering of taxi has actually saved a huge amount of energy compared to the traditional ways of having taxi. I mean, if we look at like 20 years ago, you want to order a taxi, you have to stand by the side of the street, wait for like 5 or 10 minutes. And taxi drivers have to keep on traveling around the city, even if they don't have any passenger, in order to meet all these passengers who are standing by the side of the street. So it's a waste of time and it's a waste of energy as well. But nowadays, you don't have to. Just locate your place and the nearest driver will be guided by the digital system. And you are picked up. That saves the time of the passenger and that saves the energy as well. And taxi drivers nowadays, well, I still remember about 20 years ago, it's really a proud thing to become a taxi driver in London because I was in the UK back then. If you want to become a taxi driver in London, you have to pass a lot of examinations. And most of that examination is about remembering all the streets in London. So if a passenger comes up to your taxi, you have to, and tells you an address, and you have to find that address. That's a basic skill of the London taxi driver back then. I heard that people say you have to take a training for like 1 or 2 years to remember all these streets. There are thousands of streets in London. But nowadays, you don't have to. You just open an app in your mobile phone and spend like 5 minutes to know how to use that system. And the best route will be set for you. And it will also pass those traffic jams for you automatically as well, which is something that you have to receive the training for like 2 years for a London taxi driver to achieve. But now a university graduate or a teenager can get that in 5 minutes. So this is the power of the digital era. I mean, things are changing. And we are just on the very frontier of changing. So in the future, the global economic development will hugely be led by the growth of the digital economy.
And yeah, so what kind of promising market trends can be identified for the digital economy here in China, do you think?
Right. So I think in terms of a digital economy, it really has many different applications. You could think about a digital economy that consists of, digitalization of industry. So the industry application of these digital economies are really promising. So we have seen, according to some of the research, once the digital technology is apply to, for example, manufacturing, it helps to reduce the R&D cycles. It helps to enhance productivity growth. It helps to reduce the inferior, quality products. It also helps to reduce carbon emission. So I think in many of these manufacturing sectors, the digital technologies can be further applied and utilized, and so that shows a lot of promises. And there are also, digitalization of the service industries, as I think earlier mentioned, taxis, and also deliveries and so on and so forth. So all of these are really promising when it comes to, the key components of digital economy. There has been, eight sort of core industries that have been seven core industries that have been identified in the so-called digital economy. And those include cloud computing, big data, Internet of Things, industrial internet, blockchain, AI, and virtual realities. So those are really the industries that we see, tremendous growth going forward. But I think, going beyond just the sort of the economy, when it comes to digital technologies, a lot of I think this technology can be also applied in terms of economic management, monitoring, and so on and so forth. And last but not the least, in terms of the digital economy, commercialization and trading of data is another really potential area to witness, tremendous growth. And I think, China, again, with the vast amount of data, this is also a very promising field that is going to see really rapid growth in the future.
And Professor Li Lun, so we are now in the artificial intelligence era. So in your opinion, what have been the most profound social economic changes, and how has the AI been used in different industries and sectors?
So I think, in my opinion, the most profound socioeconomic changes for AI is its impact on the workforce. So, of course, it has its pros and cons. It can enhance the productivity, but also it raises a lot of concern about, job displacement in the labor market. So, in terms of, economic growth, AI can also, contribute a lot to the growth for our GDP, but it also raises concerns about inequality or digital gap. People who are capable of using AI versus people who are not familiar with AI can have a huge difference in their productivity levels. But I mean, right now, talking about the application of AI across different industries has been applied widely into healthcare, into finance, into manufacturing. A lot, and also into retail and e-commerce. Virtually everywhere, including education as well. So, overall, I think, for example, my favorite example about manufacturing is that right now, like you can, for consumers, you can order your pre-designed furniture design to the factory in Guangdong, and the factory can, using AI system, automatically cut the boards into the small parts that can make the furniture, and they can also use the digital platform to call a truck to ship that furniture out to the consumer. So that's one application of how AI system can be used to streamline the production process and enhance productivity.
Well, we're speaking with Li Lun, Assistant Professor of Economics, Peking University, Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novum Archi Technologies, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. And after a short break, we'll continue to discuss digital economy. Welcome back. Well, we're talking about the development of digital economy and artificial intelligence. And as we look at all this development of AI, what do you expect to happen in this year? I know that chatbots have become more prevalent. Are we going to see more of that, or what's your expectation, and how will the AI impact the labor markets?
Right. So I think as Professor Lee just mentioned, the AI applications is really wide ranging. Right now, what we're seeing the most developed AI technologies are in terms of those large language models, the so-called generative AI. The United States has about 61, some of these most notable LLMs, and China is right now having 15. This is according to the Stanford's AI index report. So that is definitely, a big, I would say, a breakthrough when it comes to, China's, for example, the DeepSeek. They have been able to develop the large language model with a lot more parameters and also at a much cheaper cost and generating much better performances than some of the other, for example, ChatGPT 4.0. So I think that continues to be a really, I would say, fast-growing fields. A lot of investments are into these generative AI. But I think personally, what I'm more excited about is really some of these robotics technologies that combined with the AI. So we have been seeing, for example, Unit Tree Technology, a wonderful Chinese startup that has really unveiled the first robot dog that is able to carry out a lot of the very tough, sophisticated motions across some of the toughest terrains. In their demos, they show that the robot dog is able to climb mountains, cross obstacles, and wade through waters, and so on and so forth. And so that could have very wide-ranging, I think, very profound applications when it comes to scientific research and also when it comes to rescue efforts and so on and so forth. And also, I think in terms of industrial robots, we're seeing also a lot of developments on that front. Some of these robots are much more nimble, much more capable of carrying out all kinds of activities, and they're able to also have, smart in terms of vision recognitions and also to perform, right, all kinds of activities based on the data that they gather on the spot. And so all of these are very promising. And Unit Tree, again, also developed some of their G1, so their generation 1 humanoid robots. And, they did really make great, I think, breakthroughs when it comes to made the robots very compact. It's only about 4.3 feet and, less than 100 pounds, can perform all kinds of activities. And get this, the cost could be very low, about $16,000. I don't know about you, but I'm really dreaming to have a robot like this, right, to be able to do some house chores. So I think those are really promising areas of development. And I really look forward to that because I think, the large language models, they're great. But again, I feel like I would rather reserve those creative work, right, jobs for humans. But some the very repetitive, chores type of work, just manual labor, I'm more than happy to let AI take over.
So Jiahe, so Yan actually mentioned those robotics with AI and also the development of humanoid robots. And there is also a kind of emotion AI. The emotion AI means artificial intelligence that can understand emotion. So how much demand is there for this type of technology, do you think?
Well, when we talk about emotion AI, that is more like you are facing someone who is really a person, and it's mainly used in the scenarios of replacing the service personnel. For example, if we go to the counter of an airline and we start trying to use this kind of emotion AIs. So that customers, so basically speaking, this saves labor. I mean, compared with many other AIs that can do remarkable jobs that we can't really imagine before. I mean, for example, the locating the locating technology or the online shopping that has really changed the way of our lives. The kind of emotion AI basically replaces a lot of labor, and this will offer people a very different feeling compared, with when we were having the kind of service personnel, and the whole business model might be changed basically because the cost will be lower. And if, for example, if we employ a service person at a counter, and this person might be only work for 8 or 9 hours a day, and you have to train him or her in order to provide a very good and standard service to the customers. But now with the emotion AI, basically speaking, you can just do that without any cost. The robot can work for like 24 hours a day, and the only cost will be the investment of the robot itself and some electricity. The problem right now is that the emotion AI is developing much slower compared with some other ways. For example, the online taxi ordering or the online shopping, these kind of things. The technology is not that matured yet. And the problem is that there is something called, people will worry if the person or the robot they're facing is like 90 or 95% similar to a human being, but not 100% similar to a human being. Then in that case, people will feel worried. So if the emotional AI is not that well developed and you are missing like 2 or 3% compared with a real human being, it actually scares people. So that's a very interesting phenomenon. Currently, if we look at the real business world, the emotional AI is not yet widely used. But the technology is growing. So maybe for like 2 or 3 decades later, we will see emotion AI almost everywhere. They can replace a lot of persons who are working at the service sector, and this will increase the efficiency of the overall economy by a pretty large extent.
The technology is developing. So, Yan, China is leading in the new energy vehicles or NEV manufacturing. And so will the autonomous vehicles be common on the road in 5 or 10 years? And how will they change the car hailing industry and also the way we commute?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, the technology is really developing, leaps and bounds. I think in China, I know that in cities like Wuhan, there are already a lot of these autonomous driving taxis. In United States, I just tested the Waymo in San Francisco, which is basically autonomous taxi. My kids loved it because it's very cool car, and it's very interesting when you don't have a driver, next to you, and it's pretty safe. So I think, on the one hand, this is definitely a good thing because, again, it frees some of this manual labor. And I think, as Jiahe mentioned earlier, it also saves a lot of these sort of memorization of streets and maps and things like that. So I think it's a liberation, right, of workers that they could do other more meaningful work. But at the same time, I think the job placement, right, the labor replacement, it's another important area that, if a lot of these taxi drivers or ride-hailing workers are no longer driving the taxis, then they need to have certain skills to move into a new industry, a new type of job. So I think, this is important to, note, as always, that on the one hand, you have this technological progress. On the other hand, it does create disruptions in the old, social fabric and that economic structure. So you always need to make sure the regulations and also policies to be able to preemptively help to, reduce some of these adjustments. And I think that gets to, one thing that China has been really promoting, which is the global AI governance, right? To ensure that AI is a force for good, not for evil, ensure that, AI is used in a safe way, and also ensure this kind of fairness, right? Not only in terms of who gets the benefits, but also who gets to develop and utilize AI. So I think all of these are important. And I also just wanted to make a note that I think, autonomous driving is definitely the next, great area for development. So for many of the, sort of the companies in the West, they're really now worried about China's, and EVs, but the next step is really, develop this autonomous driving capacities, and not only for cars, I would say, when you look at the the CES, the Consumer Electronics shows, Chinese companies showcase a lot of the flying cars, right? These the EV TOL, right? The vertical taking off and landing vehicles.
And yeah, we talk a lot about the applications, and some consider the digital economy an alternative to traditional forms of economic activity that can generate sustainable growth. But many others believe technologies and innovation widen the inequality gap across the world. So what do you think?
Well, I think both are true. I think, when you look at the UNCTAD, the United Nations' report, the digital economy is going to account for 70% of GDP going forward. And so, these traditional economies will be integrated in that digital world. In other words, we will see the digital technologies being applied and integrated into the traditional industries, right? I mean, we're already seeing this a lot in education and healthcare, in, delivery and logistics and so on and so forth. So I think progressively you're going to see, the digitalization of all these traditional industries. And so that's for sure. But secondly, I also think that kinds of digital gap is going to be consistently, existent, if not widening. This is because, take AI as example, the large language model are super expensive to train and to deploy. And so many countries, they don't have, the electricity, right, let alone internet connectivity, right? You're thinking about Africa and some other, relatively less developed countries. They're definitely having a hard time catching up with, the kind of digital transformation. And so I think, again, China here could play a very important role. We know Huawei has been building a lot of these, digital infrastructure in these developing countries. And also China is able to, as I just mentioned, the company DeepSeek was able to really use a fraction of the cost to train the large language model. So I think, the digital gap is going to continue to exist. But I think, with the efforts of, China and other countries, hopefully, that gap will be shrinking rather than widening.
Well, we're speaking with Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University, Li Lun, Assistant Professor of Economics, Peking University, and also Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novim Archi Technologies. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening.